Hello ladies and gentlemen, it's Mike here at Game From Scratch, and today we're going to be revisiting the Wicked engine. Now this is a free and open source C++ powered game engine. It's made by an ex-Sony game tech developer working on his own, and I gotta say he's done some darned impressive things. This is a game engine that lives up to the hype. So what you see right now, this is Sponza running in Wicked engine, and the graphical capabilities are very, very impressive. We're gonna look at the rendering capabilities of this engine, what is going on behind the scenes in this demo, and more. But first, we're going to have a quick word from our sponsor, and our sponsor to our video matchup, absolutely perfect, because today's sponsor is Game Guru, and Game Guru, the new version, which is now available in early access, Game Guru Max, is built on top of Wicked engine. Now, I talked about Game Guru in the past. The earlier version, I said this is probably the easiest to use 3D game engine out there, and that is probably still true, but now it also looks a heck of a lot better, because it is built on this impressive game engine we are going to be looking at today. So if you've never seen it before, check out Game Guru, game-guru.com. Game Guru Max, currently available in early access on Steam. Thank you for sponsoring, and now let's jump in and take a look at Wicked engine in action. Now, ultimately, Wicked engine is aimed at developers looking to create their own game engines. This ships as a Visual Studio project. You can see it here in Visual Studio 2022, but it is really easy to get up and going. Basically, just clone it, open it up in a version of Visual Studio later than 2019, I believe it was. Again, I'm using 2022 in this case. Set editor_windows as your startup project, and go ahead and run it. Now, editor_windows is a very basic level editor. The tooling is so if you want usability, this is definitely not a polished final person kind of game engine. Game Guru Max, much better, more polished tools going on. But what it does allow you to do is showcase some of the capabilities of Wicked engine. Now, one of the cool things you can do is completely control things using script. So for example, here, I'm going to load into the Wicked engine, and we've got under content, we've got a number of scripts, and we've got, you could create objects. You can create a complete fighting game here. Here is a script showcasing how to create dungeons using Lua entirely. So you could use the Lua language to call into the API, control everything with Lua if you want. So you can do your game logic in Lua. You can create levels entirely with Lua. But where it gets probably more impressive is how good, so I'm going to clear out this world, just how good the model importer and editor is here. So I'm going to show you a simple example, then I'm going to show you a much better example. So we're going to come here into models. I'm going to load up Havoc, and this is an animated character. Should have loaded in. Where is my character? Come on. Oh, there we go. All right, so we're really zoomed out for some reason. All right, let's go take a look. Zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. All right, here we go. So we got this character in the world. Not too impressive so far, but this character is fully rigged and animated, so we can go ahead, right-click, select the character, come on over here to animations, and you're going to see there are a number of animations. So you got bone animations, etc. in this engine as well. So let's do spear thrust. All right, here we go. So spear thrust, go ahead and play that, and there is the animation. We can speed it down if we wish, or we can make it really, really fast so it looks ridiculous. So you got full bone animation, 3D model support imported, and everything I've thrown at this thing, like you're going to see in a few minutes, just strictly works. All right, so there we got an animated character in our world. Nothing too overwhelming yet, so let's add a couple more things. First off, let's add a world. We've got train abilities right here. Let's just, boom. All right, there you go. Well, now we have train in our world with our character. So now you're getting an idea of what this engine is actually capable of, which is quite a bit. So here is our character, here is our world. We've got grass that is being done via hair particles, I believe. We got really impressive lighting in the world, and yeah. So that is the basics of it. We can change, we've got control over our train generation over here, so we could change the blending amount. And so we're going to redo it. We could basically change it. We could provide a height map if we wanted to for our own train generation if we wanted. I think I just surrounded this guy with trees. So maybe let's change that. So we're going to change our seed out here. And there is our character. Our character is now floating in space, but we have a completely different world. At the same time, we got some presets to work from. So if you wanted to have more of an island setting with water, you can do that here as well. So there is train generation built into this engine. On top of that, we've also got control over the weather. So I'll go over here. I do find at times this does get a little bit on the buggy side. So right now, we've got a sky going on. We could create, so this is a realistic sky. We could also do a simple sky if we want. We can change the exposure. So this is the amount of light that the sky is ultimately giving off. We can change the speed of our waves. There is a water shader, by the way, so if I go underwater, it does have a special shader just for that. Some impressive generation capabilities there. Also, we've got some presets, so we can switch between day and night cycle. Although, weirdly, they always have this weird blue tinge by default. So that gives you an idea of the capabilities of this. Now, I was bragging earlier on about the... All right, so definitely have a lot of fog going on. So let's move the fog back as well. The capabilities of loading a 3D model. Well, I'm going to throw a 300 megabyte scene at this with a couple hundred textures, and let's see how well it does. So we're going to clear this world out. I'm going to load that model in right now. So it's in my downloads folder. This is from Morgan McGuire's download page. Again, 300 megabytes in size. Now, this does take a little bit of time to load, so I'm going to leave this to run. All right, here we go. Our scene is loaded. There are a couple of problems out of the box, but nothing we can't fix. Now, first off, what you're going to find is the scene size is too big. And this is going to showcase where the tools aren't the nicest or most user-friendly you've seen. So I'm going to grab it in the scene graph over here, and then I'm going to go to the transform panel over here. And what we're going to just do is change each one of these down to basically 10% of the size it is now. So this is pretty common. Object files are often in different resolutions and scales. All right, here we go. Here is our scene, a common popular cafe scene, and it looks okay, but there's definitely a lot we can do with this. Now, you're going to find there are a ton of render settings in Wicked Engine, and that's what we're going to play with to make things look better. So first things first, we got a little too much bloom going on with these lights, so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to bring up the post-processing. We've got a ton of control over the graphics here, and what we're just going to do is we can turn bloom off completely, and you'll see the results there. So bloom like so, but instead we're just going to move it down so we don't have nearly as much bloom. Now, next up, our weather is causing a big chunk of the problem here. So we're going to switch it to daytime presets, and then for some reason, again, it tilts as blue light, and I don't want that, so we're going to go ahead, we'll turn it to this. Okay, so there we go. Default weather. Here is our scene. Still not looking great, but if we get up close to things, you're going to see the scene imported amazingly well. And it's kind of like a European villa sort of setting. So now let's see if we can make it look just a wee bit better. And the answer is yes, we can make this look a whole lot better. All right, so let's start doing that. So the first thing we're going to do is change out the ambient occlusion. We have a number of different options. Screen space ambient occlusion, but ultimately what I'm going to do is go with ray traced ambient occlusion. Okay, now we're starting to get there. Now we're starting to look definitely quite a bit better. Now you can also find that some things have a performance hit that you don't want to pay. So for example, right now we're rocking a solid 60 frames per second, and that is because my monitor has 60 hertz refresh rate. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn on ray traced reflections. And oh, we're still there. Okay, we'll see what it does. Not doing so bad so far. Okay, so ray traced reflections turned on. You can change out the sample count, the range and power of things. So we're going to go here, and we're going to do screen space reflections on, and we're going to turn screen space shadowing on as well. Definitely looking a little bit better now. Another thing I want to do is I think I want to go back to my weather. I think we just got too much fog going on. So let's turn the fog end up, get rid of some of that fogginess. Okay, that is definitely an improvement. So looking a little over there. So what can we do about that? Well, we could definitely sharpen things up a bit with a sharpen filter. All right, a little bit better there. I'm going to turn eye adaptation on, and that has a pretty profound effect on the scene. Still looking a little jaggy in the background, but it's definitely getting better. So you see the amount of options that you have on this. You also have depth of field options here, motion blur, which isn't going to apply in this particular case. FX and so fast approximation anti-aliasing, so lightweight anti-aliasing works. By the way, if you want to go for the cartoon look, we can also do that. We change the thickness of the lines. So if you want to have that anime style look going on, you can do that as well. We can also set up chromatic aberration like so. And by the way, you can also change the exposure right here, get a very different effect. Now, what you'll notice here is we've got some flickering going on in our scene. Probably not what we want either. So instead of post-processing, what we're going to do is go into the render settings. And here's where we can get really impressive stuff going on. First thing you want to do, you want to get rid of that flicker, turn on temporal anti-aliasing, and most of it is gone. We can also turn on MSAA, which I actually find multi-sampling anti-aliasing is a little problematic, so I'm not going to bother with that today. And now we're going to get into some of the things that are going to just absolutely slaughter performance potentially, is let's turn on voxel-based global illumination. So see what happened with the shadows there? So Let's turn voxel-based illumination off again. And now watch down here with the shadowing from the lighting. And again, turn that back on. And there we go. We can also turn on, there's two different kinds of global illumination available here. Dynamic diffuse global illumination or Surfel. Now, Surfel is a ray trace diffuse global illumination, and I find it iffy. So we'll let it render and trace in. I don't get good results with it, so I'm going to turn that one back off. And instead, we are going to use dynamic diffuse. And in that case, we get some pretty solid results. So here is our scene, all of the rendering setup. Now we've got super shiny things going on the ground. So you're going to want to tweak your settings, your shaders overall, but you get an idea of just what the capabilities of this render are, what your options are available to you. You can set this up to do just about whatever you want in terms of graphics capabilities. Again, all of the things in the scenes have materials as well. So if we select something, we can come into and handle the materials on it as well. You have multiple shading models, by the way. So you've got physical-based rendering, but also got planar reflections or occlusion mapping or anisotropic right there. And then you've got the various different options down there. So if we want to make this guy more metallic, so there you see the immediate result of the metalness of it. We also have control over the roughness of our surface, the color of our surface, I think. Yeah, there we go. And so on. So you have a fine-tuned amount of control. You can also use a specular glossy workflow, which should make that work a little bit better. By the way, there are Vulkan and DirectX 12 rendering settings for this guy. So you get an idea of just what this is absolutely capable of. Oh, now we're going to go back to where we started things off. So we're going to load in a script, and we're going to load in the one we started with. So this guy is available at C Temp, Wicked Engine. This comes with it out of the box. Go to Content, go to Models, and we're going to go to the popular Sponza model. Oh, I'm loading a script. I want to load a model. Duh. All right, let's do that all again. C Temp, Wicked Engine, Content, Models, Sponza. Open that guy up right there. So we already have a scene here. Let's go find our environment. And we're going to go on over here. This should have brought in our standard graphic settings that we'd set up. So we'll go here. So the renderer is set up, and we're using our same post-processing workflow. So what you see here is you've got fully dynamic lights. So if we move those around, turn basic translation tools on over here, you'll see immediate reflects the lighting, the shadow, how everything works. It is a majestic engine in that regard. So we can come in here again. So if we want to do a very lightweight ambient occlusion instead, we could do so like that. Let me get back in here. So we'll see some of the results immediately of a few of these changes. Light shafts may work on this. No, they don't. Okay. But let's go back here. We'll turn the DDGI, the dynamic diffuse global illumination off. We turn voxel global illumination off. So you see the result of all of these various different settings. But it's a matter of finding the settings that work right for you. So secondary light bouncing is turned on. So you see that light is now, that colored light that we've got over here is now bouncing off of this pillar over here. So again, secondary lighting turned off, like so. And there is the result. By the way, all these lights are dynamic. So we can come in here and handle it. So we could change out, make it a blue light if we so wish. We could change the energy of it. We can make it a volumetric light if we want. Static light. You can create your own lights in the scene. It's a powerful engine for sure. And again, you have a ton of different options here for controlling how you ultimately want things to work. I do wish that this Surfel, it looks a little bit better in this case. All right, so here we go. That global illumination model now is on, and you see just how profoundly it changes the scenes. So you do have fine-tuned control over everything. By the way, if your machine isn't the beefiest, one of the options you actually have is to change down the resolution scale. So it's actually internally rendering at a lower resolution. It should just basically perform a bit better. At the same time, you can actually oversample, so we'll do 1.5 times, and then have it render down, and you get much different results as a result, which I guess sounded a little bit weird. So you got a ton of different controls over how this will work. Again, I find bloom is a little bit overdone. So a lot of times you're going to want to come in, turn bloom way down. So a lot of the weirdness that you may see in the rendered world is from bloom settings. But it is just amazing, in my opinion, what this renderer is capable of. But you can potentially kill your performance in a very easy manner by setting things to a setting that you probably shouldn't. So for example, we can increase the number of ray tracing bounces. We can turn on everything. We can jack up the ray tracing accounts. Secondary light balancing turned on. We can change the voxel size. So eventually you could get it. Yeah, so we're getting down into sub 60 frames now at this point in time. But I've also got double the resolution scale and so on going forth. So you can get some really amazing results out of the Wicked engine. Again, though, this is the tooling. It is not a super polished experience. If you want a polished game engine with nice tooling, check out Game Guru Max. Do not use Wicked engine for that. This is more for people wanting to build their own game engine on top of it. But hopefully I showcased some of the graphics capability of this guy. And again, it's got a lot of other features. We'll look at those in just a second. So we saw the animated models being brought in. The fact that you could bring in and load things entirely with Lua script. So there's a number of scripts in here. We're going to load a different one up here. So let's load in a particle animation. This is all controlled via a Lua script as well. By the way, there are particle systems as well. There's physics in here. There's just a ton of functionality in this. You also got tools for painting various different options in here. So vertex colors, sculpting, hard body physics, hair, and so on can all be painted on the scene. There is a ton of functionality in the Wicked engine, and I highly recommend checking it out. So as I mentioned to start this video off, the Wicked engine is an open source project. It is under the MIT source code license. I will have this linked in the linked article down below. So if you want to check out Wicked engine, it is hosted up on GitHub. There is scripting documentation if you want to use the Lua scripting. By the way, you can also code things entirely in C++ if you wish. You can run for Windows, Linux, and UWP. Interestingly enough, it is Windows 10 or higher, so 7 and 8 don't work. I wonder why that particular thing is. But all the instructions are available here. It is really simple to get started with. There is a make-based workflow too, by the way, if that's the way you want to go. Here is the simple C++ code to load up a scene. So the minimal C++ side of things to get things up and running is actually quite light. Obviously, you're going to have to know how to set up a project in C++, set up the linker and all of that stuff. But yeah, it is definitely an interesting game engine with a ton of professional graphics rendering capabilities in there. You can tell the guy came from a professional space, and it's an interesting project for sure. In terms of the feature list, I'm not going to go through all of it, but there is a ton here. It's got DirectX and Vulkan renderers. Font rendering is in there. UDP-based networking, 3D mesh, skeletal animation, morph target animation, physically based rendering, all of the various different graphics settings that we saw in action, CPU or GPU-based particle effects, soft particles, hair particle systems, a number of anti-aliasing options, a number of lighting options, 3D physics provided by Bullet, 3D audio is in there, resource management, Lua scripting, you name it in terms of a graphics capability. It's got it as well. It's got an inverse kinematics animation system in there. There is a job system in there. There is real-time ray tracing, including ambient occlusion, shadows, reflections. There is even path tracing in there as well. A number of global illumination models. It is an impressive engine. If you want to back the developer up, by the way, he does have a Patreon page, so I'm not even going to try with the last. I'll give it a shot. Janos Tornowski? I don't know. I really am awful at pronouncing Polish names. Apparently all the R's roll. But this is Janos's project. He is patron supported. I will link to that in the linked article as well if you want to check that out. And again, thank you for the sponsorship, Game Guru Max. And if you are looking for kind of the graphical capability we saw today, but you're preferring like the ease of use of a much, much easier to use game engine, Game Guru Max is definitely worth checking out. The links will also be available down below. Well, let me know what you think of Wicked engine in general. That is it. I will talk to you all later. Goodbye.